Welcome back, everybody, to Dungeon Brew. John and I are continuing our series today, talking about thieves' guilds and the different masters and jobs that you will discover there. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Dungeon Brew.
Welcome back, everybody, to Dungeon Brew. John and I are continuing our conversation about Thieves Guild. We've been going through the leadership and the qualities and the different masters, the jobs that you can find. Today we're going to be talking about the Master Purser, who is a very important role that you need to fill in your job. John, why don't you go ahead and get us started here? Who's the Master Purser and why is he so important?
So Master Purser, I think, at a glance, seems very boring and lackluster. Does not seem like the one of the most important roles in the guild, but realistically, if you have your guild master and you have two masters in your guild, one of them should be a purser, because the purser is the one who tracks the treasury, tracks the money, and ostensibly does loan sharking jobs for the guild, but realistically, the purser allows access to a number of other options for the other masters in the guild, and having him be affiliated with the guild is extremely important when it comes to things like targeting individuals in order to loan money to in order to get more money. It's important for the other masters to work with the purser to ensure that the coffers are remaining full and that they're getting enough money for the guild to remain open and remain profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the guy that's running your books. And I know it doesn't sound really exciting. It's like us thinking about taxes every year.
Right.
But it's very true that when you are creating a business, you're going to create your business, you're going to get the bylaws written, you're going to get your supply and demand chains going. And the next thing you do is you get an accountant.
Right.
You need somebody who understands the process of money inflowing and outflowing and making sure that you're staying in the black all the time. Otherwise, you're not going to have a successful business, right? And so when I think of your purser, this is probably a stressed out individual, because if he messes this up, the entire operation goes to shit.
Right.
And so he is constantly staying on top of every coin that's coming and going, because he has to answer to the guildmaster, where in most cases, in a job, you might get a slap on the wrist or get fired. If he messes this up, he's probably going to get murdered.
And if you have a good guildmaster, the guildmaster spends more time probably talking with the master purser than any other master in the guild. Because the purser has his finger on the heartbeat of the treasury, like we were talking about. So, real briefly. So, there's two things that I think that we really want to talk about in this video. The first is the loan sharking jobs, and the second thing is the association that the purser has with other guild members and how he helps to assist them in the jobs that they do. So, we'll talk about... I guess, Josh, would you have a preference for which one we handle first on this? Because I can see it going both ways for either one being equally important. It's kind of a back and forth, really.
Yeah, it really is. Let's go and just dive into loan sharking.
Okay.
So loan sharking really has two pathways that come to mind for me personally in terms of like what types of jobs you're looking at for loan sharking.
Sure.
And it's important to know that the purser himself is probably going to be distributing these jobs to your adventurers or to your party, to your characters, to go out and do one of two different things. One of those things is just like we think about loan sharking. It's loaning money out to individuals in order to capitalize on that investment with interest and have it come back in again. And when we're thinking about loaning out money, the purser just doesn't give anyone and everyone money that comes to the guild looking for money. They're not a bank in terms of like, we just process this and look at your credit score and give you out money. He is looking at who actually has the best chance of paying back money to them with that interest rate. So targeting high profile individuals, diplomats, nobles, individuals that have steady income, where he can look at his books and say, hey, we're running a little short on funds in the treasury. I'm going to loan out 1,000 gold to this guy, knowing that I'm going to get back 1,800 gold in a month's time period and increase the funds in our treasury, which is going to make my boss very happy.
Right.
So
it's a very low risk, easy way to accrue money, and it's the same. It's what a bank does, honestly. It's just the interest rates. So the purser is going to make sure that his interest rates are comparable with other guilds in the area to make sure that
Absolutely.
it's attractive, while at the same time making sure that he has enough money coming back in to make it profitable and worth the risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the second thing is putting out loans to individuals that he knows cannot pay back, but it's an investment in that individual. It's going to give them access to particular information, to particular influence, these types of things where he goes, hey, boss man, I think you gave an example of this beforehand. We got a guard whose wife is sick and needs healing. He doesn't have the money to pay for it, but if we give him this loan with interest, we know he'll never be able to pay it back, and we always have a guy on the inside on the city guard.
Exactly. And there are any number of examples of this. You can do this with merchants, where it's like there's a new merchant who's trying to set up his business. Let's give him the money with interest. I know that he's not going to be profitable enough in this business, but we can hold this over his head and we can turn that into a front. And suddenly we have a place in order to be able to fence our goods from, because he's not going to be able to say anything against us because we have all this money over his head. And like I said, there's any number of examples of this. You can do this with nobles, you can do this with merchants, you can do this with clerics in order to get somebody who's going to be your healer, or something like that. Like any number of instances where you're using this as a means of manipulation. And I think that this is the first instance where we start talking about where the other masters start tying into the way this works. So the purser by himself, he's behind his desk all the time. He does not have the time to go out and do this research to find the individuals that fall in line with, can I get profit from them, or can I extort them in some way? And that's where the spy master comes in, which we haven't talked about the spy master really at all so far in our list of masters, but I think that everybody can kind of gather what a spy master does. He goes out and he finds information on people. So the purser ties in very heavily with the spy master, because the spy master will feed information to the purser and say, these are people who are good for getting your return on your investment. These are people who are good for extortion, that we can then use this money over the top of their heads in order to gain control of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what master you want to dive into next to, but the master enforcer comes into mind too.
Right,
say
because
that,
we're talking about extortion.
yeah, somebody is not paying back the guild, or not putting, at least paying the interest on the loan, or whatever the case may be. The master purser is going to get with the master enforcer and have him go out and work at leveraging that individual to pay them back by whatever means necessary. And this is something that really, I think you captured this well in the introduction here, but every master in the guild is invested in making the master purser happy, because he has the ear of the guild master.
Right.
So when the master purser is reaching out to you and saying, hey, so-and-so is not paying their dues, or so-and-so owes us money, or so-and-so didn't give us the information we needed, and he's not paying us either, go and take care of this, the master enforcer is going to jump when he's told to go jump. Because if he doesn't, guess who's going to be blamed when the master purser comes back and says, yeah, our books aren't looking great, the ledger's looking low, the treasury's looking empty, I gave the direction of what needed to happen, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, and there's definitely, if you really wanted to get into the politics of the guild, I think you could have a lot of fun with this type of dynamic, where how much control does the purser have? And like I said, a good guild master is always going to listen to his purser, but at the same time, a purser might be overstepping his bounds in some regards too, at which point he has to be put back in place. So you can have fun with that. But I do like the idea of the purser being somebody who every other guild master really wants to pay close attention to, because he's also the one who improves, not necessarily approves, but may have a kinder ear toward, or a kinder word to say to the guild master when it comes to things like the master fence is wanting to purchase a great deal of illegal goods and bring them in and sell them. Is the master purser going to be on his side and say that it's a good investment in terms of funds? Are we going to have enough money for it? What is the return on the investment going to look like? And that's generally true over most of the masters. The master assassin is going to be the same way. The master thief, are we able to afford this loan that he's basically giving internally? Are we applying the funds correctly within the guild, and I think any other master wants to be on the master purser's good side in order to ensure that they have the funds necessary to appear to be more profitable and to do bigger jobs and that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of like hesitant to talk about some of these other masters because we haven't gotten into them yet. But the master warder is a good example too. This is the guy that's in charge of like your security of the guild. But he's going to come to it and say, hey, you know, we need additional traps at the front. We need to build additional walls. I need to build another secret door in the back. All these types of things that we need to get escape route. Like those types of investments, he's got to get that approved through that purser, or at least have the purser on his side, or it's not going to happen.
Exactly. So, and then just I briefly talked about this. Master Fencer, Master of Thralls, both of them are going to be tied very closely to the purser because the jobs that they have to do specifically have to do with things like acquiring goods and selling goods, and all of that just has to do with tracking supply and demand, making sure there's enough money in the treasury in order to purchase, making sure that there's enough return on investment so that the treasury grows after a job, that type of thing. And then the Master of Veils, I was talking about this with the merchant that you loan the money to. The Master of Veils is going to be somebody who's going to help to not only identify with the Spy Master on, is this a good location for a front that we're going to try and extort this merchant into supplying for us, but he's also going to be just dealing with in terms of how do we cook our books to make it look like the fronts that we have as businesses make sense from an authority perspective so that we don't get raided. And so he works very closely with the Master Purser to make sure that their books look good enough from a governmental standpoint so that they don't arouse undue suspicion.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because I think that also adds in other types of quests. Let's say the Master Purser needs more evidence of what maybe the government's looking for, or etc. They have to go and essentially use espionage tactics to go in and like get documents, look at other books of successful businesses in the area to compare them to, all these types of things to like make sure that it matches what the obligation is for a business that's being brought up. But whenever, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that you're keying in on something that's really important when it comes to a Thieves Guild, and this is the slow build, the slow burn that eventually comes to a head, where you can show the player's progress as part of the quest they've done up to this point, right? So you have them start out doing a quest where they're basically going around and they're working with the spy master to collect information. They find the guard who's in need of having his wife healed. They go and talk with the purser in order to be able to extort the guard. They start lending money to a noble, and they find out that the noble is trying to bring up legislation that's going to change the laws when it comes to how they handle their books. So then they're talking with the spy master again to do more research on the noble. They're trying to talk with the purser in order to try and they're trying to talk with the master enforcer in order to get in contact with the guard so they can extort him, so they can get access to the files, so that they can get in and do espionage for the spy master to find more information. But they have to use that guard that they initially tried to extort or they lent money to long ago in order to get all of those wheels set in motion. And I'm kind of running through this very fast, but I think that you can kind of put the pieces together where you start going in and working with different masters to do different things. You start creating contacts, you start creating people who are relying on the guild, and then you start to have events unfold within the city in response to the things that the guild is doing within the city, so that eventually they can use their contacts in order to put in some upheaval and change things around to the benefit of the guild.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to like overstate the matter because I think there are other factors too, but using the master pursers like books and tracking like the income and outcome of the guild is a great measure of success and player success through the course of a storyline within a guild itself.
Right.
As you see those numbers get more and more into the black and influence growing with the guild in relation to those numbers, you've now built yourself a successful Thieves Guild. And that's probably why you and I are hammering so much on the importance of this Master Purser, because it's a measure of success.
Right.
And my last thought with the Master Purser is just when you're thinking about it, if this all sounds very complicated, the Master Purser essentially is all about smart investments. It's about risk and reward. So anytime you're thinking about this individual, that's what they're looking at. That's what they're assessing is what's the risk? What's the reward? Is this a smart investment for our guild?
Exactly. Really, in terms of the Master Purser, I think I'll just reiterate this real quick before we close out. He doesn't have much in terms of specific jobs. I mean, he does the Loansharking, which we covered right at the start, where he's looking for people to get a return on investment for quick coin, or he's looking at people that he can extort with the Master Enforcer and the Spy Master in order to identify and then make use of those people. It's an investment. Those are the two types of Loansharking jobs he really does. Everything else is in some way tied to other masters. And because of his influence and because of the type of work he does, he's very important to the guild, but he very rarely specifically hands out jobs because most of his time is spent behind the desk tracking investments, tracking coin, and tracking whether or not any investment is going to be worthwhile for the guild so that they can get a decent income.
Yeah, absolutely. I just imagine Scrooge sitting there behind his desk just in a continuous day full of meetings, talking to masters, issuing people back in, and having the random talk of loan sharking out money. Yes. Otherwise, it's just like a day full of checking books, counting coins, and meeting with masters that are coming into his office.
And then reporting to the guild master on what it is that exactly that's going on. And I think a lot of the power and the influence of the purser is, and this is true of any master, but specifically handed down from the guild master to say you have the authority to either approve or not approve loans, or maybe he has to go and bring all of those up to the guild master himself. And so it's like he has a daily report saying, all right, the master fence is wanting 456 gold so that he can go buy some illegal goods from the neighboring country. The master assassin has a job that he's doing, and there's supposed to be payment at the end of the job, and he's requesting 100 gold for supplies so that he can go and do this. And that's all it is he's just listing off potential costs, and then he goes, okay, and this is all the money that we've made. The master thief has reported that yesterday they made 422 gold, and that's going straight into the coffers. That includes expenses and any rewards that were given out to the members who were associated with a rather large burglary job, blah, 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 blah. and I think it's boring, but it's also fun from, I don't know, from a very nerdy perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I will say that as he's providing those jobs, that information, he's also already done a risk assessment on what the percentage of return is. So, you know, this guy wants 456 gold. I from my numbers, we can probably make a 20% increase on that job if we approve it, but this one over here has a 25% increase. We only have this much money to play with. I say we move with the 25% increase. Right. Like it's really looking at those types of things and providing that to the guild master to make the final call. And usually when you have more increase, it's more risk. And so then it's whether or not do we have the numbers worth the risk, or is it better just to go with the smaller increase at this time? I know we're getting into like crazy shit, but to me it's fun. It's really fun to kind of break that down. Setting this up as a GM can be very challenging.
Yeah, I know we were talking about approaching the end, but I think that's something that we do need to discuss. That as a GM, you do not need to
be an accountant.
You don't need to be an accountant to do this. You can paint in broad strokes with this type of thing. I think that having a little bit of understanding of basically the risk and reward, return on investment, those types of things I think are important for the Master Purser to understand and the GM to understand, just from the sense of they're not throwing money out to do whatever. But it's also important to realize that every time that there is an investment on something, the return is not like a 200%. That's not the way that this works, because that's not the way the business works. So they're putting money into something, and like you said, they're expecting a percentage of return. That could be 5%, it might be 50%, but most of the time it's relatively small numbers, and this is the day-to-day business. This is how the guild operates, is they're dealing with tens, hundreds of gold. It's very rarely, unless it's a very large guild, that they're dealing with thousands of gold, and the thousands of gold is the type of thing that is being reinvested. It's just not sitting in their coffers, because if the money is sitting in their coffers, it's not doing anything for them.
And it is very important to understand that coffers are not bottomless.
Yes.
And I think that's probably what you're getting at too. Like, I
Yes.
think that sometimes we come into a thing going, oh, we have a thieves guild of X number of people. The coffers just can continuously have money to hand out. And in that case, it's not true. Like, your coffers only have so much money to play with, and it should be relative to the size of your guild.
Yeah, and that might be something that we talk about in a future video, just in terms of like raiding a thieves guild. You don't raid a thieves guild and get 10,000 gold out of their coffers, because that 10,000 gold is out in the streets working for them. It's invested in things. It is not just a room full of Scrooge McDuck gold.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Anything else that you have to add?
That's all I have. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us again here today on Dungeon Brew. Look forward to seeing you next week. Hit the subscribe button, and we'll talk to you next time.
Dungeon Brew.